everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. When Calls the Heart fans upset Hallmark series did not mention of WW1. In When Calls the Heart Season 12, Hardys may have been surprised at the seriousness of little Jack's diabetes storyline. Coupled with the lack of local medical care, Elizabeth, Jack, Nathan, and Allie had to leave their comfortable life in Hope Valley for Cape Fullerton. This is where the little boy's grandmother lives, as well as a top place for diabetes treatment. However, it appears that many Hardys wish that the Hallmark writers would include more serious history in the series. That includes their wish for more acknowledgement of World War I, also known as the Great War. Here is what they had to say. Do When Calls the Heart fans want some reality mashed up with their comfort watch? This Hardy certainly does. I understand that this show is historically accuracy light. However, ignoring World War I and replacing it with a Northern Territory squabble or debacle was one of the most disrespectful things ever. They continued with the suggestion, even if you water it down to just newspaper mentions by the characters and not show any action, you can get the message across. To gloss over it like it never happened is very disrespectful. They continue with criticism of the show's co-creator Brian Bird, and how they have been ignoring a huge part of history. In addition, they shared their family's contribution to the war, including the Infantry Ski Division. Next they added, plus given Canada's rich contribution to WW1 compared to the Yanks who came in at the 11th hour. It was just such a letdown, was they could have shown the world how Canada played a part in it. I am surprised not one of the Canadian actors spoke up. They finished this post with their own frustration with the series. I'm not sure why this is such a delayed reaction, but it has bothered me. I should have quit the show then and there. Ashamed to know the writers value stupid love triangles that bait the viewers rather than telling a small truth of world history. The summation showed frustrations with the series and the overdone Lucas, Elizabeth, and Nathan love triangle that has permanently fractured Hardys. But what was the response to this post about the Hallmark series being disrespectful? A Hardy posted a heartfelt missive on her disappointment that the Hallmark series, When Calls the Heart, did not include any reference or even acknowledgement of World War I, also known as the Great War. What did other Hardys have to say? Bird misses opportunities left and right constantly. I get the Northern Territory storyline, but they also could have had a WW1 storyline after that. It didn't have to be big like you say. None of us watching the show are expecting violence or gore. This is merely a matter of incorporating history. The whole "it's the 1920s now" is just blay because they never showed interest in history before. They are only interesting in making note of the 1920s because it is a fun decade. Hallmark also keeps things light and fluffy. That's a factor too. The network has a say and Hallmark rarely gets ritzy or any conflict or bad things. It's all happy endings and misunderstandings. The Magic of Ordinary Days and The Lost Valentine are two Hallmark films that absolutely delve into World War II. You expect historical accuracy and respect from a Hallmark show. Please don't be so naive. Everything about this network is unrealistic and disrespectful to logic, let alone a world war. This topic certainly garnered some discussion that went both ways about this issue. Some Hardys didn't think including references or a storyline related to WW1 was in Hallmark's wheelhouse, while another fan pointed out two very well-known classic movies that had to do with World War II. All in all, the most confusion was why the When Calls the Heart writers skipped over the Great War and the Spanish flu worldwide epidemic, but decided to embrace the 1920s. But there was no mention of little Jack's diabetes and the grim mortality realities of that time. When Calls the Heart fans can watch the complete 12 seasons of the series on Hallmark 1+. Hardys, would you like When Calls the Heart to share more storylines that include some of the serious events of the era? For years, When Calls the Heart has been the crown jewel of Hallmark Channel's programming. A heartwarming mix of small-town romance, frontier spirit, and wholesome drama set in the fictional Canadian coal mining town of Hope Valley. Loyal viewers, known passionately as Hardys, have stood by the show for over a decade, through cast changes, story pivots, and even a global pandemic. But now, a new controversy is brewing among fans, and it's not about who Elizabeth chooses to love or whether a character leaves the valley. Instead, it's about history, or rather, the lack of it. The year is 1917 in when calls the Heart's current timeline, and yet the show has skirted around one of the most monumental events of that era. World War I, fans have noticed, and they are not happy. A missing chapter of history. In reality, by 1917, Canada was deeply entrenched in World War I. Thousands of young men were conscripted to fight overseas, and entire communities were impacted by rationing, wartime industry, and the emotional toll of loved ones being far from home. Yet in Hope Valley, the war appears to not exist. Social media platforms dedicated to the show, normally filled with sweet messages about favorite episodes and romantic predictions, have been buzzing with frustration. One Hardy wrote, "It's impossible that a town like Hope Valley wouldn't have men called to war or women stepping up in new roles. The writers are ignoring history." Another fan posted, "We love this show because it's wholesome, but history matters. It feels disrespectful to that era to pretend the war isn't happening at all." For many, the series' historical inaccuracy feels like a betrayal of trust. They argue that part of the magic of period dramas is the way they capture the struggles and resilience of their characters within the context of real history. Hallmark's style versus historical reality. Hallmark has long positioned When Calls the Heart as family-friendly, avoiding dark or violent storylines. The network aims for optimism and comfort viewing, something that kept many people watching during difficult real-world moments. But as the show moved deeper into the late 1910s, fans began to wonder if Hallmark's signature style was colliding with reality in a way that felt tone-deaf. One Twitter thread captured the debate perfectly. "We understand they can't show graphic war scenes, it's Hallmark. But they could at least mention it. Maybe a character's son enlisting, or a news headline, or even a passing reference at church." Another replied, "Exactly. We don't need trenches and blood. Just acknowledgement. Pretending it didn't happen makes it feel like Hope Valley lives in a bubble detached from real life." Even the most loyal fans seem to agree that the absence of World War I in Hope Valley's narrative is becoming more noticeable with every passing episode. Missed story opportunities. Part of what frustrates Hardys is the potential for deeply emotional, meaningful stories that could stem from including the war in some way. Imagine Rosemary and Lee Coulter worrying about younger family members enlisting, or Nathan, already a man of law and order, facing the dilemma of staying to protect Hope Valley or being called to serve his country. Elizabeth, whose entire arc is built around resilience and growth, could have been shown helping war widows or comforting children whose fathers were away fighting. Even the school curriculum she teaches could have included letters to soldiers or lessons about world events. These subtle touches could honor the time period while still keeping the show's warm, hopeful tone. Fans have pointed out similar shows like Road to Avonlea or Downton Abbey, which tackled wartime events without losing their heart or sense of optimism. If Downton Abbey could do it with class, why can't When Calls the Heart? One fan posted in a Facebook group dedicated to Hardy's discussion. The showrunner's dilemma. The showrunner and writers have yet to officially comment on the uproar, but insiders say that incorporating World War I may have been seen as too heavy for Hallmark's brand. There's also the possibility that the creative team simply wanted to focus on Hope Valley as a safe haven, a place untouched by some of history's darker chapters. Still, fans say that ignoring it altogether undermines the authenticity that has been a key part of the show's charm. One longtime viewer explained part of why we fell in love with Hope Valley is that it felt like a real place. But now it's like they're pretending it's some magical alternate reality where the biggest problem in 1917 is whether a saloon gets new curtains. It's weird. Some fans have even speculated that addressing World War I could have strengthened character development. It could have tested relationships, forced difficult choices, and created new avenues for emotional storytelling. Instead, When Calls the Heart continues to focus on romance triangles, town festivals, and business ventures.